My guest today is Kathy Cunningham, class of 1985. A dedicated servant of her community, a former professional cheerleader, and a generational pirate, Kathy shares with us in this episode how keeping her brother Donnie Robertson Jr.'s legacy alive after he tragically died on 9/11 has been one of her greatest tools for creating good in this world. Through her fundraising efforts for the Tunnel to Towers Foundation, Kathy's team has raised nearly $2 million to provide mortgage-free homes for Gold Star and fallen first responder families. Take a listen to hear more about Kathy's journey and her drive for serving her community in honor of her brother. Kathy, I'm so happy to have you on the show. I'm excited to jump into your story, so thank you so much for joining us.
I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. There's so much to get into. I mean, I am talking to someone who, in her volunteer work, has raised nearly $2 million for such an important cause, and we're going to get into that. But first, I want to know, how is it that you are even on this show? To be on this show, you have to be a Seton Hall alum. What is your journey? How did you get there? And I know the Seton Hall really runs deep in your family. So as we say, we bleed blue. I know that blood runs deep in your family. So talk to me about that journey. How did you end up at Seton Hall?
Well, Bianca, I grew up basically on campus at Seton Hall. My grandparents have been season ticket holders for years. So I grew up in Walsh Auditorium going to all those basketball games for years. Then my grandfather was inducted into the Seton Hall Athletic Hall of Fame. My dad is a 1956 graduate. Who also played, and he also played basketball at Seton Hall. And my uncles, they're triplets. They're older than my dad. They attended Seton Hall. So it was in the cards that I attend Seton Hall. I've been a pirate for years. So, with all that said and done, there was no question where I chose to go to school. That's for sure.
Now, not only does that Seton Hall blood run deep in your family, but also the athleticism. So talk to me a little bit about why you went to Seton Hall and the major that you chose. It very much is in line with that legacy of your family and athleticism.
Well, sports has been a big part of my family and continues to be, even with my children. But yes, I went to Seton Hall, and I'm a phys ed and health major. And that was just my calling. I wanted to be a teacher, and what a better, platform for me to choose than phys ed and health. And so for 4 years while I was there, it was an amazing experience with great professors. I did my student teaching. I did volunteer work while at Seton Hall, and it never was a disappointment. It was always just a wonderful calling for me. And, I'm a proud pirate. My family was thrilled that I chose to continue to wear the blue. That's for sure.
Now, let me ask you, when we had our pre-call before we had you on the show for today's recording, we talked a little bit about your career and the way in which something that really struck with me was how much you emphasize, like, you use your degree every day. And I love that, because there are so many people who graduate and they're like, I graduated, I thought I was going to be this. I totally changed gears and I went in a different direction. But something that stuck out to me was that you use your degree every day. Can you tell me a little bit about that and what that career journey has been like?
Well, when I finally enrolled at Seton Hall as a freshman, I was 21. There was a little gap between after I graduated from high school and when I finally enrolled. My parents had moved, and so we were displaced a little bit. We landed back up in South Orange. And so I was a 21-year-old freshman, and I knew, like, that light had gone on. I knew what I wanted. I knew I wanted to be a teacher. I knew I wanted fitness, sports, and that was like the breakthrough of aerobics as well. And I have a dance background. So everything, kind of the cards fell into place. And I hit the campus going 100 miles an hour because I knew what I wanted and I knew that that was my calling. Also, I was working, I was running a health club at the time. So everything, just all the cards kind of lined up for me. So for me, there was never a doubt, boy, what am I going to do with this degree? I hit the ground running. I could not wait to get out just to get going with that degree. And like you said, Bianca, I use that degree every day. 40 plus years later, I mean, I'm 66 years old, and every day I get up and I use that degree from Seton Hall with training, teaching, motivating, inspiring, and living a life of wellness and fitness.
I love that.
It keeps us young. It keeps us young.
I love that. I love that. And now you also mentioned to me that you had some experience in dance, as you just mentioned, but in cheerleading as well. Can you share a little bit about that experience?
Of course. Yes, I have a background in dance, which combined beautifully with that phys ed health and then into adult fitness and so forth. But I do have a background in cheerleading. So I cheered in high school. I actually made the squad at Seton Hall, but because I was cheering in the Meadowlands, it just got to be too much. But so I cheered for the Cosmos, the New York Cosmos, the soccer team with Pele and so forth. Then I cheered for the New Jersey Nets, and then I cheered for the New Jersey Generals, all based out of the Meadowlands. Great experience for me as an athlete, as a performer, and just it gave me that opportunity to meet people and do some wonderful things and have some great fun. So that I did that for 7 years, and then finally got down to getting that first job teaching, which took me to East Brunswick High School and middle school, where I taught phys ed and health and driver's ed and so forth. So yes, it was a springboard from Seton Hall through professional cheerleading right into the phys ed and health world of teaching.
And I love the way you answer that. And that's why I wanted to ask, because I know that you had talked about a little bit of wanting to cheer for Seton Hall, but you couldn't because you were already committed to professional cheerleading. And I was like, when I first spoke to you and we were getting to know each other, I was like, what a flex. What a mic drop. I was like, I couldn't do it. I was professionally cheerleading.
I couldn't do it. There weren't enough hours in the day. I was going to Seton Hall. My first class started at 8. It ended at 1. I went to the health club that I managed at the time, and I went from 2 to 10 at night, and then locked up, and then came home, did homework and so forth. And that didn't include doing student teaching and being out in the field doing work. So I just didn't have enough time. But to this day, I'm still one of Seton Hall's biggest cheerleaders.
So you mentioned not having enough time, a very busy schedule. You continue to be just a very busy, super engaged person in your community. And one of the ways in which you are engaged is with an organization called Tunnels to Towers. And I know that there's an important story there, an important legacy as to why and how you're involved. So I definitely want to get into that. But first, tell us a little bit about what Tunnels to Towers is.
Well, Tunnel to Towers is a 9/11 based foundation. We're based out of Staten Island, New York. However, we are nationally known. The Siller family lost their brother on 9/11. He was a firefighter who had just gotten off work, and he was going to meet his brothers. He was the youngest of 7 children. He was going to meet his brothers to play golf. And as we all remember that day, 9/11, it was a beautiful day, blue sky. And Stephen was going to meet Frank and George and Russ and play golf. And the call went out on a scanner in his truck that the towers had been hit. So he called his wife, Sally. Now, Stephen was 34-year-old father of 5. And he called his wife, Sally, and he said, Sal, tell my brothers I'll catch up with them. Something's going on. I have to be there. Turned his truck around, got to the Brooklyn Battery Tunnel, which is now called the Hugh Carey Tunnel. It connects Brooklyn with lower Manhattan there. And they wouldn't let him through. The city was under siege. We're under attack, and we can't let you through the tunnel. Meanwhile, the tunnel is filled with cars fleeing the city. He left his truck there. He put on all his gear, his turnout coat, helmet, oxygen tanks, everything, about 60 to 70 pounds. And he ran through the Brooklyn Battery Tunnel over to Manhattan. He gave up his life there. He ran in to save others, and he perished that day. So his family said, how do we honor Stephen? How do we keep his legacy alive? And his best friend said, let's honor him by tracing his footsteps on that fateful day. So we developed, the Tunnel to Towers was formed, and then they developed this 5K that we do every September. And we trace the footsteps of Stephen Siller through the Brooklyn Hugh Carey Tunnel to Lower Manhattan. The first year that we did it, we had about 1,000 runner walkers. And now we fast forward 20, can you believe it, 23, 24 years later, and we have over 32,000 runner walkers that take part in that every year. So that's how the Siller family created this amazing foundation to keep their brother's legacy alive. Now, what do we do with that foundation? Well, we're all proud patriots. We take care of our military and our first responders. So we build smart homes for our most catastrophically injured military, and we pay off the mortgages for our fallen first responders and that are killed in the line of duty, and our Gold Star families. So if they've gone to war or killed in the line of duty, we pay, and they leave family with young children, we pay off their mortgages. Now we're involved with homeless veterans. So our goal is to continue doing good and making a difference. And that is how the foundation started. My brother was killed on 9/11, and that is how I became involved. So I went over and did the run, and it was mind blowing. It was life-changing for sure. So I had come across hundreds and thousands of people that shared my same story. So I became the #1 fundraiser for the foundation, and running in honor of my brother. My brother's Donald Walter Robertson Jr. And so I put his name on my hat with a Sharpie marker, and I took off. And then after a couple years of raising money for the foundation, Frank Siller, our CEO, said, Kathy, if you raise $500,000, we'll put Donnie's name on one of our smart homes. Now, these smart homes that we build are handicap accessible, mortgage-free homes that we build for the most catastrophically injured service members. So I raised $500,000, and we put Donnie's name on the first home in Bethel, Pennsylvania, for Marine Corporal Tim Donnelly. We raised another $500,000. We did another one in New Jersey for Marine Corporal Scott Noakes. We did another one for Marine Staff Sergeant Ben Webb. We're on our fourth one, and these homes cost about $500,000. So that is, I'm a cheerleader, and I have a purpose, and I think that's what Seton Hall taught me. I don't think that, I know that. It taught you to have a purpose. That faith-based education that we all were privileged to have taught us how to, be kind and give back and make a difference. But when 9/11 hit, that purpose was loud and clear. And the purpose was to keep my brother's memory alive, keep his legacy. And that was by raising money and doing good for the foundation.
I love that. I love that so much. I think the story that you shared of the foundation is already enough of a cause for one to want to participate and join, but then knowing that you yourself are one of those families that suffered a loss, I imagine that is even more motivation and really just a drive to do all the work that you've done. It is work. You're saying like raise 500, raise 500, raise 500. That's a lot of work, Kathy. I don't actually know all that it takes, but I know that it takes a lot of work.
Well, it takes a lot of work, but Bianca, I am blessed. I have a microphone on every day, teaching, training, coaching. We are in an area where everybody knows somebody that was lost that day or knows a family that lost somebody that day. We vow to never let people forget that day. And how do you impress upon them not to forget? You've got to keep doing good. And the Tunnel to Towers Foundation is amazing. We are a grassroots local foundation that now is nationwide. And if you watch Fox News you see us all over. And it really is, a tremendous, with pride that I am able to do that. Our motto with the foundation is St. Francis of Assisi. And he said, brothers and sisters, while here, let us do good. And that's what we carry. And that's how we live. That's how I try to teach my kids to live. Let us do good. Take that tragedy of 9/11, which stopped us in our tracks, and take that tragedy, turn it into a tribute to those like Stephen Siller and my brother Don Robertson and all those 2,977 souls that were lost that day. All right. How do we keep them alive in our hearts and souls? By living a good life and by doing good things. And, we always say, goodness overcomes evil. And we live that. We live that with the foundation. And I live that with my children. And, Seton Hall, when I think about it, I was married in the chapel at Seton Hall. My kids were all baptized in the chapel at Seton Hall. And then in those dark days after 9/11, we had my brother's celebration of life in the chapel at Seton Hall. So it really, the hall speaks to us. The hall is our home. It really is. On many levels.
And now you've started to integrate, right, the work that you're doing with Tunnel to Towers and your Seton Hall community and other university communities in the area. And I think that's so important because something you just said is you want to make sure that people do not forget that day. And the reality is that we do have a generation now coming into college of young people who were not born when 9/11 happened, who did not live that actual experience, and I remember the experience. I watched 9/11 happen from the window of my classroom when I was 13 or 14 years old. And to think about the youth of today who did not live that experience, how do you make sure that they remember? How do you make sure that they don't forget? And I love the way that you've started to integrate communities with Tunnel to Towers. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Oh, absolutely. What you touched on is so important, Bianca, is that we don't want 9/11 just to be a chapter in a history book. We want to talk about it. When I go out, I'm an ambassador for the foundation. When we go out and we speak about it, our goal isn't to scare, kids about this. It's to show how resilient we are as a nation. It's to show that something bad people did a horrible thing that day and how we as Americans turned it around with our resilience and came back. We say they took the towers down, but they did not take us down. We came back stronger, more vigilant, and more on top of it. And so even with the foundation, we have a curriculum that we integrate into schools that talks about 9/11 with our kids. With the college kids now, going back to our 5K that we do at the end of September. It's always the last Sunday in September. The Seton Hall Pirates are involved with it. My daughter played lacrosse at Manhattan College, and we have the Jaspers on board. We have Wagner College. We have the St. Peter's College now. They want to get involved. And the reason they want their athletes, their students involved is because, again, it just shows them, how resilient we are and how we turn this tragedy into a tribute. And when you show up that day and you see over 30,000 runner walkers, and I say to these kids all the time when I go to the campuses, you don't wear headsets that day when you go through the tunnel. You want to live it. You want to hear it. You want to breathe it. You want to taste it. You want to see those 4,000 cadets from Army coming through the tunnel chanting USA, USA. When you come out of that tunnel and you see there were 343 firefighters that were lost on 9/11, and you see the banners of all those faces as you come out of the mouth of the tunnel out, if you don't have a tear in your eye, if the hair, you don't have a goosebump on your arm, if the hair on the back of your neck doesn't stand up, I say them all the time, I got to check you for a pulse. This is a day to be a proud American. This is a day it's life changing. I say, after you do this run, you come back as a changed student, person, athlete, whatever. And, it is a fundraiser. So when I go to the campuses, I say, I'm not here, kids are on limited budgets, but we give them a discount code so they can run, not at the same rate everybody else is running. And we say, listen, if you want to fundraise on campus, like I know the girls, the Manhattan College girls, they are very competitive. And I'll say to them, whoever raises the most on the team, I'll get, a gift card up to Salvatore's or Soho to go get dinner. And, but it gives them an incentive to do something really powerful, to feel good about something, and that's our message. Like when you go out and kids are always like, are you having a bad day? Well, if you're having a bad day, you better do something good for somebody, because I'm going to tell you, it's going to make you feel better. And if you do that 5K at the end of September, you will leave there feeling so much better, so much more empowered, and like a proud American that you made a difference and you contributed.
I love that. I love that, Kathy. And so you're steeped in your community. You're so involved in this foundation. You went from being a runner in the 5K to becoming a board member, and you were recognized in your township as Citizen of the Year. How did it feel to get that recognition?
Well, in life, there are many times that you're proud and you're honored, but to be honored by my town, and to be honored by my school tonight. Let me say this: to be honored by my school tonight, to be chatting with you, and to be sharing the message and saying to students, alumni who listen, get involved. Don't be afraid. All right. Get out there, make a difference. But for my town to honor me by awarding me Citizen of the Year, they said I was America's cheerleader, and that, it was about doing good and giving back. And it was a wonderful night. And we had about, a couple hundred people at this big dinner. And it was a tremendous honor. My parish, St. Catherine's right here in Spring Lake, did the same thing with our candlelight ball. They honored me for my service. And, I think that's what we really want to impress upon our youth, is to get involved, and that, service is key, no matter what it is, whether it's the Tunnel to Towers or, breast cancer or whatever I have done in the past, jump in and have good energy and do it 100%. The fundraising I do year round in honor of my brother, we created Team Shamrock. My brother had a shamrock tattoo on his hip. And so we created Team Shamrock. So we're the #1 fundraising team for the foundation now. And, last week we played bingo with almost 400 people, bingo in bags, and raised $30,000 in 2 hours playing bingo for the foundation. So wow. There's lots of ways. You just need to be creative and unafraid. And, we always say, what's our motto with Seton Hall? Hazards at forward, right? That's right. Know. So that's what it speaks to me. It speaks to me daily. That pirate is on the back of my car. The pirate is on the back of my dad's car, and he's 90 years old. And, wow. And that's just who we are. Be proud of being a pirate. Be proud of being an American. Be proud of giving back. And don't be afraid to tell your story, because my story hopefully will inspire others.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. That's such an important message, because when we talk about legacy, what is that, right? It is telling our stories. It is living our stories. It is upholding and preserving the stories of those who've come before us or our family, like in your case, your brother. And that is such an important message, because also for our youth to have a direction, to have guidance, to understand where it is that they need to go, they need to also know where it is that they've come from. And so those stories are really, really important. I love that message that you're sharing with the community. And now, so let's think about, in a couple of years, if I was to say, Kathy, come back on the show, I want to know what's been going on, what would that story be?
Well, I'd like to think, Bianca, that my story would be the same. I don't waver. What you see with me is what you get. And whether it's putting a microphone on and teaching a class, or, I'm a realtor here in Spring Lake, I am very transparent. What you see is what you get. And I'd like to think that in a couple years, if I were to come back, I would say to you, V, I'm still on the board. I'm still teaching. I'm a little older, but I'm still teaching. Because you know what? I love what I do. And that springboard that Seton Hall gave me to do what you love. A lot of people get out of college and they've got a degree and they don't know what they want to do. Some of my own children, that were college athletes. Now, what are we going to do with this business degree? What are we going to do with this history degree? I'd like to think that Seton Hall gave me that springboard to go out and do what I love. Now, I was a little bit older. I was a little, those couple years made a huge difference in me.
Yeah.
I put the pedal to the metal, and I did winter sessions, summer school, you name it, because I was just so motivated to teach. And to be able to still be teaching and still be motivating, spreading the word. I hope that when I speak to you in a couple years, that I'm still doing what I love. And that is motivating, inspiring, fundraising, and keeping my brother's legacy alive.
Beautiful. Kathy, thank you so much. It has been such a pleasure talking to you this evening. I can't wait to have that conversation, but we won't wait a few years. I'll definitely be in touch with you and hope to see you in the Seton Hall community at all of our things. I know that you will be, because you bleed blue. So I love it. And thank you so much for being on the show.
Bianca, I can't thank you enough. It is an honor and a privilege to chat with you tonight, to tell my story, to get that word out to all the other pirates. And I look forward to chatting with you again down the line. And go Pirates.
That's right. Thank you, Kathy. Kathy is one of more than 100,000 alumni who demonstrate what great minds can do with a Seton Hall education.